Grace.
All right, perfect. All right, welcome to the show, everyone. My name is Mark. I'm your host, and today on the show we've got Noah. Noah, welcome.
Hey, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate that.
Hey, you're welcome. So I brought your favorite, the Recovery Band, and they're gonna play you some intro music. They still only
Ooh,
know
very
one.
cool.
I know, right? They still only know one song. So kick it, boys. Uh. All right, in the studio audience.
A little funk, a little
A
funk.
little funk, right? Well, hold on. The studio audience has got something for you too.
Woo,
Standing ovation. All
that's
right.
awesome.
So, so Noah, thank you for your time and your service today, and for coming on and sharing some of your experience, strength, and hope in your journey. And so I've known you for a while now. What, like probably like a year and a half?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, at least a year and a half.
Yeah, but
Seeing you in the Sterling room over there.
yeah, absolutely. I always see you in meetings. I see you doing service, picking people up and bringing them to meetings. And so let's start with the basics, because at the end of the day, I've never really heard like anything like about your story that much. Just been in the rooms while we've shared, and everything. So how much time do you have in recovery?
So I got like 28 and a half years. So June 29th, 1995, I walked into the Bay House down on 26th Street and Biscayne Boulevard to a treatment center. And that was the beginning of my official journey of recovery.
So this is continuous time then.
Correct.
Okay. Wow. Wow. And so what brought you into recovery? Like what happened?
Wow. So just like I guess everyone else in this world, somehow along the line, I crossed that line, right? Between enjoying alcohol and drugs and dibbling dabbling into crossing that line and becoming obsessive compulsive. And it's kind of basically managing my entire life, right? It was
Hmm.
my first thought in the day, and the last thought at night was drinking or drugging.
Hmm. And so like that was your solution then.
Solution. I didn't find a solution for quite some time, right? But through many years, even before the 28 years of sobriety that I have, um, at a certain point in my life, I guess you realize that you are an alcoholic, but you're just not ready to make that commitment yet. And for me, it took a little bit of time to kind of get in the rooms. I knew I had some issues and problems, but I just wasn't ready to make that commitment yet to recovery.
Hmm.
My father always told me, whatever you do, be the best at it, right? And I guess I wasn't ready to be the best recovering alcoholic at that time. So I was like, yeah, let me continue drinking for a while and figure this thing out.
Uh-huh. Yeah, so you said now look, I can identify that with that. Like I knew for a while I need to do this, but I noticed that I have a disease of denial like on two levels. One about the problem and one about the solution. And it took a while to get there. So how long did you know you're like I've got to do something about this?
Great question. So, starting out young, I had a couple of sisters that, kind of introduced me to alcohol and drugs when I was very young, like about 12, 13 years old.
Mhm.
So, and I had my experimenting with that, experimentation that, but it didn't really take its effect on me until I was probably about 25, is I guess where that moment where I realized that this is a problem. And for me, it was a sense of failure. Like my life, I was always a pretty hard worker. I was a pretty honest going guy and a functional member of society. But I had a situation in my life where I had a woman and a son, and the woman didn't want to allow me to have access to my son. And it was when I tried to fight for that right for my son, I had the moments of failure. I'm sitting here
Mhm.
trying my hardest to get access to my son and be a part of his life, and it was being taken away from me. No matter how much money I spent on lawyers or how much work I tried to get to the courts to be able to see my kid, I felt like I failed. And that moment, that sense of failure in my body made me become vulnerable. And then that's when I started to get depressed, and I started to drink a lot more. And then drinking led to a lot of other things.
Mhm.
And at that time, I was like 25, 24 years old, I guess. And I realized that this is me, right? I'm depressed. I failed. There's nothing left of me. Why not just, let's drink my life away, so to speak.
Mhm. Yeah, so you did that, so that pattern then. and like waking up feeling even more depressed, and just kind of it just kept going.
Every day, every day I drank myself into some kind of problem or situation that I couldn't get out of. I woke up the next morning and just like, what did I do? What did I do? And every night I try to run away from that problem, and I'd make it worse. And then I wake up in the morning with a clear mind again, or somewhat clear mind, and
Mhm.
realize, oh my God, what have I done? I've destroyed more people. I've just hurt more people. And most importantly, I hurt myself, right?
Yeah,
And as much as I wanted to get my son back in my life, I was making it harder for me because I just kept falling down this path.
yeah,
Um, from somebody who had a life in a certain sense there. I was responsible, productive member of society. At that time I had my own apartment. I felt pretty good as a human being.
hmm,
To losing it all and being, forced to live with my sister, who thank God took me in at that particular time, knowing that I was, a full blown alcoholic and a drug addict, so to speak.
uh-huh,
But for me, I was like, yeah, I just got a lot of problems. You got to give me some time to fix it. Just got to give me some time to fix it. I said to my sister. And
yeah,
meanwhile, like every night, I'm going into my nephew's rooms and I'm stealing their video games to go sell it for other things, or to
wow,
just have a couple more drinks.
yeah,
So it's just that successive pattern of downhill spiral, you know
yeah,
and I think I went down pretty quick. I
mhm,
think it was like probably like within a year and a half, I literally lost and destroyed everything that I had in my life, and that everything that loved me and that I loved was just destroyed by the use of alcohol and drugs.
yeah. So now you said that she knew before you knew, like she was saying stuff to you about it.
Yeah, my sister and my family, they were all like, listen, no, you got a problem, man. Look what you're doing to yourself. Look at the things that you've done. You're stealing stuff, from the kids. You're doing, you need to get help. And I'm like, yeah, 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 I'll be okay. Let me just, let me take this paycheck, and I'm going to move out. And then the next, week would come and I get my paycheck. And
Yeah,
within, a couple of hours, I would have blown all that money, or paid the guy that I owed from the week before, right? Because of,
yeah,
using drugs and drinking.
oh yeah,
Um, and my work knew it too. Like my work, like God bless them, at the time, my boss, like he knew exactly what I was doing. I was stealing from him blind, and he knew it the whole entire time. And he was just shake his head, but he loved me, unconditionally. And thank
hmm,
God for that, man. I'm very good friends with him today, and I'm very grateful for his help at the time. But it's funny, like him and my sister, they worked so hard to try to get me help that they opened a bank account without my permission with my name in it. And they
what?
basically took my paycheck every week and they deposited my money in the bank account that I had no access to.
And you had
And
no.
he gave me like, hey, this is how it was crazy. It's insanity, right, Mark?
Yeah,
And I allowed this, right? Because I'm an alcoholic. I'm a drunk. I'm an alcoholic. I'm a drug addict. And I just wanted to survive. I wanted more. So you know what? I allowed it to happen, Okay, give me my $50, whatever, for the week so I can survive. And what I did, I just stole more from them behind their back. I stole more video games from my nephews and try to hawk them and to get them back and just go around just to survive, And then eventually I had enough money in that bank account that they put away for me. And then my boss says, listen, Noah, I love you, but you need help and you need to go get help now. I'm firing you. You have enough money in your bank account to go get some outside help, whether it's counseling or outside, what do they call that? Out, it's not in rehab, but outside recovery. I don't know what it's called, but the meeting's
well,
outside.
yeah, like a PHP, like an IOP.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
So I I initially tried that, So I said, okay, I'll do what you guys say. And I went to a couple of meetings, with these particular people, and they listened to my problems. And then as soon as I was done with them, where was I at? I was at the dope house, or I was at the bar drinking away,
yeah,
And
yeah,
it's just a shame, but that's how this disease is, right? It's progressive and it's
absolutely.
deadly.
Yeah, it is. It's very progressive. It is very deadly, and and then that. So, was there a moment of clarity for you?
Absolutely. So after many times of trying to, go to meetings here and there and make the not official attempt, but I just, put my feet in there just to say that I was there, right? To
Hmm.
give that check mark to somebody to say, yeah, I was there. Um, I eventually, I was Baker acted. They tried to Baker act me. They put me in courts, and I went to the court, and the court said, you need to go. You're going to be court ordered for 60 days to go to a treatment center.
Oh
I'm like,
wow.
yeah, okay. And I missed it. I missed the deadline that I was supposed to go there. and my family threatened me. So like I said, I lost everything. I'm living with my sister. I've done all the damage I had. I ended up with a couple other jobs, um, and this one company that another restaurant who believed in me a lot as well. He he also had faith in me, and he says, "Listen, go get yourself help, though. But it will be here when you want it." And
Wow.
my sister's like, that's it. You need to go. The court's we're gonna go to court again. They're gonna come and arrest you if you don't go in. And I said, listen, let me take this paycheck. If I don't take this paycheck and move out of you, you know what? I'm gonna go willingly. So Friday came along. I got my paycheck. I cashed my check. I ended up getting dope and ended up in a Hess gas station on 135th and Dixie Highway in North Miami.
Wow.
And I basically smoked enough cracks for a while there, and then I got out of that, and I realized like, oh my god, this is crazy. I walked over to Enchanted Forest, which is down the road there, like 16th Avenue and 135th Street, and I'm along the railroad tracks over there, and I saw people like they were following me. I was like all paranoid, like what the hell is going on here? And I'm sitting on the side of the railroad tracks, and I'm like, what the hell am I doing?
Yeah.
What have I become? What have I become? This is insane. I can't do this anymore. And at that moment, that was like the epiphany. I think that I realized that what, it's time to like wake up and start working on me and get
Yeah.
this straight. So I walked over to 125th Street to the Flanagan's on 125th Street and like I don't know 10th Ave or something like that over there. I drank myself sober. I went home. The next day we had the court or something like that, or a couple of days later we had court. I went to the courthouse and my father took me there and I said, listen, you know what? I'm going to go willingly. And they said, okay, you know what? You have a chance, on such and such, you're going to go into as soon as they have an opening, you're going to go in. And I said, okay. And when the opening came along, the night before, I ended up at a gas station. I was trying to find like some way, like have that last hurrah.
Yeah.
I think everyone always tries to get that last hurrah,
Yeah. One
and
more
and
time.
my one more time, and I had no money. I had no money. I had blown every single bridge and every person I could borrow money from. Nobody would give me money. Somehow, somebody gave me a Schlitz malt liquor bowl, and the last beer I ever drank in my life was a Schlitz malt liquor bowl. And I
What?
was at the gas station over there across the street from Enchanted Forest, and I drank a Schlitz malt liquor bowl. And the next morning, which was June 29th, 1995, my father took me down on a bus. My father didn't have a car. He took me on a bus down to Bay House on like 26th and Biscayne Boulevard. And I walked into the room there and I met the administrator there, the director, Mr. Charles Arnaud. I'll never forget this. And when I walked in the door, he's like, welcome to Bay House. And he introduced me to my roommate. And he was this like 6'5" black gay guy. And the guy's like, hi, my name's Rob. And I'm like, holy fuck. And sorry, excuse my language, but and then I was like, this is crazy. So like I'm in this place, it's like a shithole. It's in the 26th Biscayne Boulevard. There's hookers walking up and down the road there. There's people selling drugs all on the side of the road. And so like the next morning, I walked downstairs to the administrator, Mr. Charles Arnaud, and I said, Mr. Arnaud, I go, I'm sorry, this place isn't for me. This got to be like a cleaner facility. And here I am, like, I'm smoking crack out of a fucking can on the side of the road, and I'm worried about like this room being like clean or dirty. It's so
Oh,
stupid, right?
they obviously didn't know who you were.
Right? So I'm like, I'm like, there's got to be something better. And he says to me, Noah, he's like, you're right. You know what? There might be something better. You know what? But the door's open right there, Noah. There's no lock on this door. You're more than happy to walk out of here. But if you want help and you want it from us, we're here to help you.
Wow.
You know?
Wow. So
And
he laid the smackdown.
oh yeah, straight out. He was a straight shooter. He was a really nice guy. I mean, he definitely had a big impact on me. But I was like, what the hell is this guy saying? He called my bluff, so to speak. Who am I? But I gave it a chance. I went in there and I gave it a chance inside the recovery center. And some people, are very fortunate to kind of get recovery
Hmm.
just going to A meetings or NA meetings or whatever meeting they may be. Um, for me, I needed that to go into that recovery house because it gave me an opportunity to kind of stop the hands of time. I was able to pull myself out of the puzzle, fix myself and put the pieces back together and kind of have like build a new foundation. But
Yeah.
when I walked in that room, when I walked into that Bay House, I had reservations still. I thought like, okay, I'm going to do my 60 days, so to speak, and like I'm going to come out of here. I'm just not going to do any more crazy drugs, but I'll still smoke pot every once in a while, whatever like that.
Yeah, doing it
Um,
your way.
eh, yeah, exactly. So I did, the routines and stuff like that inside of the Bay House. I went to the meetings that they had. I followed all the instructions. But like after 30 days of being in the treatment center, there was a hurricane that was coming, and we had two choices for the hurricane. We had a choice to either go to a shelter that was local within there, or we had the opportunity to go home. So of course, I thought like a shelter is too dirty for me. I don't want to stay in a shelter. This is disgusting, you know. And I asked if I had the ability to go home, and they said sure. As long as somebody's willing to accept you to go home, you can go home on your own accord. But then, when the evacuation or the emergency situation's over, you would return back. I said okay, but inside the treatment center there were phases: phase one, phase two, phase three, and I was phase one. I was really close to phase two, and I asked if, before I go, can I be at phase two? So I don't even know, like, I don't remember exactly what it would be titled to be phase two, but whatever it was, I wanted that title.
Yeah.
I think it was phase two. At phase one, you had to be walked back and forth between the different buildings. At phase two, you could walk by yourself. So anyways, the guys agreed to me to have phase two. So I decided to go home during the hurricane. And like I said, I always had the intentions of had reservations, like I'm going to smoke pot or whatever. But when I went home for those 2 days, the first day I got home, the first thing I did was go to my old work. And when I walked in the door to say hi to everybody, it was like the first time that I realized that how people looked at me. Like, when you're in denial, you don't know how, you think that you're not a fucking alcoholic or a
Yeah.
drunk or anything like that. But everybody else has fully in full visibility. They know exactly who you are. And when I walked into that room that day and I saw my friends, that looked at me first time with like these different eyes, I saw for the first time, I saw it for clear and like how they actually looked at me. And I was
Hmm.
like, oh my God, wow, holy shit, this is who I affected these people. You never realize how many people you affect, until after the fact. And it's like these are my coworkers, but I affected them really badly, by being drunk all the time or being high all the time or borrowing money from them and never paying them back. I did a lot of damage to those people. So when I walked in that room and they looked at me the first time, I was like, it was a really weird feeling. And I went to go look for a meeting right after that, and all the meetings were closed. And I went to the Dixie clubhouse over there, and it was closed because of the hurricane.
Yeah. Oh, the
So
West
I went,
Dixie.
yeah, the West Dixie Club.
Yeah.
So I went back home, and I just waited my time until they called the hurricane off, and I went right back in the treatment center. And from that moment on, I walked in the treatment center, and I never had a reservation again. I walked into that room and I started working on my fears. I started writing letters to God every single day. Dear God, obviously starting those letters off like, how could you do this to me? Blah, 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 poor me, and yelling at God. But at the end of those letters, I found serenity in the sense that, what? I'm in the right spot. I'm doing the right things. Things are going to be okay, as long as I follow this path.
Yeah.
And I never looked back, and I learned about the fears of what, why I was afraid, of failure and stuff like that, that it's okay to fail. And I learned through that process of writing and doing the steps and start working the steps and getting a sponsor. And then doing my time, so to speak, in the treatment center. I was court ordered for 60 days, but I ended up staying in there for 72 days. And then I got a call from
Nice.
my old boss who took my paycheck and he says, hey, listen, I'm opening up a restaurant and I really could use you. I know you're doing well because I'm talking to your sister. How would you like a job and to help me? And I figured, you know what? This is an opportunity for me. And I left. I left the treatment center, walking out. And the guy at the treatment center, Mr. Harvey, one of the counselors, he's like, you'll never make it. And he had that down. And I'm
Didn't he
like,
know who you
okay,
were?
right? I'm like, okay, okay, Mr. Harvey, I appreciate that, but I'm going to prove you wrong. And like I said, my father always told me, whatever you do, be the best at it. And I've always tried to maintain that. No matter what job I had, if I was a dishwasher, I was the best darn dishwasher. And I applied those things in recovery as well. That what, if I'm going to be recovery, I'm going to put 100% effort into this, and I'm going to stay sober. Um, and that's what I've done. For 28 and a half years, I've been able to, through that process, I got out of rehab. I followed the steps. I followed the suggestions.
Yeah.
I worked the steps. as far as, the one, the 12 step, having had a spiritual awakening as both these steps, try to practice these principles in all our affairs, and not just in meetings, and in AA, but in all my affairs, I try to apply these principles, honesty, integrity, all that stuff is
Yeah.
all within my daily life. Um, and somehow, by the grace of God, I've been able to manage to stay sober by being consistent.
Yeah, and do you think part of that's like you're still trying to prove that guy wrong? You're like, I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna continue to make
One,
it.
100%. It's like a competition, man. It's like a competition. So I don't know, like if you ever had those people come up to you, like your friends
Oh
who
yeah.
you've known for a while, and they're like, "Oh, well, how come you can't drink now?" I'm like, I don't want to. I don't want to drink now. Not for nothing. Is I worked hard for what I have, and what is that drink going to prove? For me, it's going to mess up my time. I count. I've
Yeah.
worked hard for these 28 and a half years, or how many freaking days that is. Is like I've worked super hard for that. Why would I want to go mess it up?
As soon as I have that
But
first drink, he's gonna come around. I told you you wouldn't make it.
that's right. And I got to start at zero again. I got to start that clock, and I don't want to do that. So
So
definitely not doing it, man.
but like yeah, that fear of what will people think, like that was like when you looked at your fears list. When you were looking at fears in recovery, like I noticed like that was a big one of mine. What will people think? And it was one of the things that I had that actually I look back now and it kind of kept me from getting sober was like, oh, I'm going to this concert. What are people going to think if I don't drink? Right. And then what are people going to think when I tell them that I got an issue and I got to go to rehab and all this stuff? And it really like plagued me for a long time. Like did you have that fear? And like, what were some of the fears like that were like big ones of yours?
Oh, absolutely. So, one in a social event, right? It's like, what is the common thing in a social activities is like people drink, right? It's very common for, being when you go after work to a meeting or something like that, people drink. So how am I going to react to that? How better people perceive me if I don't drink,
Yeah.
am I going to be comfortable because I don't have that drink to loosen me up, it took a while for me to get used to that and to be comfortable. I would first walk in to those meetings, or those little after hour, get-togethers.
Yeah.
I would have a glass of water, and I wouldn't say anything. And I would usually walk out pretty quickly in the beginning because I didn't know how to face that fear,
Yeah.
And then eventually it's like, you know what? It's none of the goddamn business of why I drink or not. I don't have to disclose that if I don't want to.
Yeah.
If somebody, and I've had, so I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to go in, and I wouldn't walk out the next time. And then I'm sitting there and somebody asked me, hey, you want to have a drink? No, I'm fine. Thanks. I'm good with my water. Oh, you don't drink? I said, no, I don't drink. How come you don't drink? You know what? It's just not for me. And I would leave it at that. Some people would push, and I say, you know what? I used to give them that stupid line like I'm allergic to alcohol. They're like, you're allergic? I said, yeah. I break out in handcuffs, then I would just kind of break out the monotony of that, And
Yeah.
but yeah, eventually I had to be me, I'm
Yeah.
Noah, and Noah's Noah, whether he's sober or whether he's drunk, I'm still Noah. And I had to be who I am and be comfortable within my own skin, right?
Yeah.
So I think the biggest part of recovery and facing the fears and of judgment of other people was having to kind of learn how to love myself. When I walked in these rooms, I was lower than snail snot. I hated myself more than anyone hated me. I hurt myself more than I hurt anybody else. So when I looked in that mirror, I didn't like myself. And I had to learn that progression of, that every single day I'd look in the mirror and say, you know what? I'm a good person today. I'm not going to harm myself today, and I'm not going to harm anybody else, And that's the first day, and then I lay my head at nighttime and look in the mirror and say, you know what? I didn't harm myself today. I didn't harm anybody else today. I had a good day. And I
Yeah.
can go to bed. And then the next day I wake up in the morning, I look in the mirror and say, I'm a good person today. I love myself. I'm not going to hurt myself. I'm not going to hurt anybody else. And at the end of the day, I look in the mirror again. I didn't harm myself. I didn't harm anybody else. I'm a good person. Do the next right thing. And I had to follow that process every single day until I learned to love myself and be okay with me, be okay with my skin, and then be okay with being around people without drinking,
Yeah.
and going to concerts or going to, games, football games. I'm a big hockey fan. So going to hockey games and stuff like that and be
Yeah.
comfortable. So you know what? I'm still the same asshole that I was drunk, sober, So I still get into arguments with people in the hockey stands. I can still jump up on a table and dance around the table like I'm drunk. And I have a lot of friends of mine that are not in the program, and we do a lot of activities together. They
Yeah.
respect me.
Yeah.
And when I go around, you know what? I'm the designated driver. They love it. I walk around,
Built-in
you know,
DD.
I, I walk with them through like Key West, and
Yeah.
I jump around like I'm, like a fool, because I'm happy. I'm having a great time. I'm
Yeah.
enjoying people watching and dancing and listening to the music because you know what? I'm happy, and people look at me like that guy's fucking drunk. I'm like, no, he's not. He's completely sober, man. That guy's completely sober. But that's the thing is that, AA doesn't have to be like gloom and doom and oh my god,
Yeah.
my life is over. No, man, you have to have fun and lose those inhibitions and be comfortable with you and be comfortable in situations. And when someone asks you like, why don't you drink, it's none of your damn business. You know what? I'm having just as good a time as you, if not better, sober. And you know what? I'll remember everything tomorrow morning, and you probably won't.
Have you ever have you ever woken up sober and you're like, in a way, I kind of wish I didn't remember that.
Oh
People
yes.
watching.
Oh yes. So, definitely early in my recovery, prior to being married, I've had to be the wingman a couple of times for some friends, and I've got myself in situations and like, wow, I did that sober. Wow.
Well, you're bringing up a good point on page 132 of the big book. It says, we've been speaking to you of serious, sometimes tragic things. We've been dealing with alcohol in its worst aspect, but we aren't a glum lot. If newcomers could see no joy or fun in our existence, they wouldn't want it. We absolutely insist on enjoying life. And, that's what it's about in recovery. Like, I used to think, like, I was like, oh my God, my life's over. I'm an alcoholic now officially. And, and it's not the case. And,
Yeah.
and life's good sober. So when you were talking about, like, you went to the Dixie, like, I know you from the Sterling, when did you, what, is that where you started your recovery journey, like where you officially found
Yeah.
meetings? Yeah.
So I found meetings in the Little River Club, the West Dixie Club over there in that whole North Miami area. And I also
Nice.
went to the other fellowship. That's where I got my recovery because I grew up in that North Miami area.
Yeah.
And then I eventually moved away to Broward County, and then I stayed up in this particular area here.
Yeah.
So
Little River's a great club.
yeah, it was great back in the day. I definitely changed a lot. I tried to go down there not too long ago, but it's obviously not in the same spot over there on 79th Street. It's not that same hole. But there was a lot of great recovery in that room and the old timers and stuff like that. And I had a lot of family members that were also in AA. They were members of the Little River Club.
Hmm.
So it was kind of nice growing up in that particular thing. I had some good support, in the beginning times. Unfortunately, a lot of my family members didn't survive through the process. They ended up relapsing,
Hmm.
and they ended up passing away because of this disease, unfortunately.
Mm.
But they were the ones that actually planted the seed for me, like in the early days.
Hmm.
I saw them, and they pointed out as well. But I
Yeah.
wasn't ready back then.
Yeah, it is. I realized I had to be beaten into this, like kind of beaten into submission, like I had to do it myself. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not ready. Like I had that 3-day touchdown in 2012, and I'm like, yeah, this is so not me. And it took 10 more
Yeah.
years of pain and misery for me to be like,
Yeah.
all right, I'm done.
It's,
Tap.
it's the commitment, right?
Yeah.
Because inside it's a lifelong commitment, right? And
Yeah.
are you willing to make that lifelong commitment?
Yeah, and it is, and there was a point in my recovery where I was sober. I probably had like maybe like 90 days, like maybe just a little, maybe about 100, and I was driving, and this thought came across my head. I was like, oh my God, how am I supposed to do this for the rest of my life? Like I'm gonna do it, but like how? And after that, I finally got busy on the steps. Like, what was the step journey like for you?
Well, the step journey life with me was a little slow in the beginning. And I don't
Yeah.
know if that was always the greatest thing because, sometimes when it's too slow, you get stagnant and you
Hmm.
get lost within the steps. But that's what I needed to do for me. I needed to go through that process, especially like the 4 step, there's a lot of pain and misery, so to speak, within that or the uncertainty, what's going to happen, what's going to happen. But I
Hmm.
had a good sponsor, that, he was patient with me and he gave me the opportunities kind of, to get through that process. Um, I since learned, I think it's better to kind of just get through the steps first, especially, the first 4 or 5 steps, right? Get through it quickly, right? Because there's always another time to do the steps, right? If you
Yeah.
sit too long, it's people tend to relapse a lot, I guess, because they always worry about the 4 step. I thank God it didn't happen to me, but but I could definitely see that, is because I had a lot of worry on that stuff, and that could definitely take people out. But
Yeah.
if you look at the old timers, the old timers back in the day, it was like they did the first 4 or 5 steps within their treatment center within like 2 weeks or like a month. They were
Yeah.
done with the first steps because you know what? Let's get what's it. Do you believe in God? Yeah, I believe in God. Are you power yourself out? Yes, I'm power out. Do you believe this? Somebody's going to take this way? Yes. Okay. Next.
Yeah.
It wasn't like you're in a desperation mode, right? You
Hmm.
know it's true, right? If you have
Yeah.
to fight that, then you got more problems. If you overthink things, I guess keep it simple, stupid. And
Yeah.
I think that's what I'm definitely an overthinker, and I'm definitely like that, and that's kind of what happened for me.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I was very fortunate. I made it through the process, and I've done the steps a few times. I've had a couple of good sponsors. I've lost good sponsors,
Yeah.
and right now at the moment, particularly at this moment, I'm at a loss now where I'm trying to find another sponsor, and it's hard, at a certain time frame, it's kind of hard
Yeah.
to find that one that fits,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, it's
um,
that was difficult. Like when I was looking for a sponsor, like I had a couple guys I was looking at, and then I got one, and then I got another, and then I finally found the one that was like the right fit. And I've heard people say different things about that, like, oh, just get a sponsor, but I don't know, like something like I had to be able to see what they had and want what they have and connect with them on some level. I just couldn't pick any sponsor, like some
yeah.
rando out of the crowd.
I,
It's,
no, for sure. No, for sure. I picked the tough guy. And I took it like a business too, right? Like in the sense that this is a business, right? I'm following these steps. It's my business, right? And
yeah,
my business is my success of recovery. And if I'm going to be successful in recovery, I want somebody who's going to be strong and is going to guide me through. I don't want somebody for me, I don't want anybody who's going to be soft on me. I want somebody who's going to be understanding, but not somebody who's going to be too soft,
yeah,
And that's what I took it as a business. And I still take it like that today in that sense, like I'm in recovery, and the recovery is a business, for me. And then the business is to take care of me, and that means, like these are my exercises, going to meetings on a regular basis,
hmm,
practicing these principles in all my affairs is consistency, right? And when you do things consistently over time, it becomes habit, right?
yeah,
And then it becomes automatic, and then it's never, you don't have to think about it anymore. You don't have to think. It's like it's not work to do anymore. It's become part of your process of your day, you know?
yeah. It's yeah. I know that like it took a while for me to deprogram like those old habits. It took a while. I mean, I'm still going through that, but like especially like practicing a new set of principles in all my affairs, and can making sure meetings every day, making sure that I stay within that triangle. And now you travel a lot, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So
Unfortunately, yeah, sometimes I do. Yes.
so do you find yourself going to meetings in other places?
I do. So as I travel, I do try to find meetings. Like I was in Aspen on my birthday, on my
Oh wow.
26th birthday. I was in Aspen, and I was able to go to a meeting. I found a meeting there in Aspen. And
Yeah.
they accepted me nice and easy. There, it was beautiful, and they're great people. So at all different places you go to, I try. There's You know what? That's one of the greatest things about Alcoholics Anonymous. That pretty much anywhere you can find a meeting, right?
Yeah.
Um,
It's everywhere.
so whenever I travel, I do try to pick a meeting when I go. And if I don't have the time to go to a meeting, I still call somebody and talk, right? A meeting is two people talking about recovery, right?
Yeah.
That's a meeting.
Yeah.
And at the same token is that, trying to practice those principles in all my affairs. So like, even if I might not be, in a meeting, whatever like that, if I'm talking to somebody at work, it's still the same process to me.
Yeah, I heard it only takes two people to have a meeting. You're correct about that. Now, when you go to another place for a meeting, like, do you ever hear something that you don't hear in any other spot in the country? You're like, what's that?
I've seen what I've seen a lot of. I've seen a lot of like a lot of community, I guess, within the meeting places. So, where I was in Menlo Park in California,
Hmm.
and there was a meeting over there, and they were very much as far as the community, like they stuck together, and then after the meeting, they all went to dinner together. The whole entire place, like, hey, are you coming with us, Noah? And I said, you know what, I'd love to come. So went out to dinner with them and hung out for a little bit and just kind of hear some of their stories, and it's cool, that kind of community. And not to say that I don't see that here in the little in Little River in the Sterling Room, but I'm just
Yeah.
not part of. I'm not part of that particular group, perhaps.
Yeah.
But the meeting that I went to, it was every single person all wanted to go, and every person went. And it wasn't a big meeting. It wasn't like 30, 40 people in a meeting. It was probably about 12 or 15 people. But when you go to dinner with 12, 15 people, that's pretty cool, you know? And they made sure that everybody went. It wasn't about money. It was about joining and being a part of in that community. And
That's
that's something I
beautiful.
really like to see, you know, and I would love to see that, like, you know, in our area, you know, like maybe like one day, like after the meeting, like whatever they call like the dinner meeting or something like that, you know, and
Yeah.
after the meeting, everyone goes to dinner, you know, we go to like IHOP or like Denny's or something like that. And it doesn't matter who has money or not. We'll figure it out, you know?
Yeah, it's that's a beautiful thing. Like, like I've been to dinner with a few times with like people from AA, but I've never been like after a meeting like a big group gets together. Maybe a couple of times, but it's kind of been random off the cuff. It wasn't something that like people regularly did. Yeah, but
Right.
that fellowship and going out to dinner, like, how'd it feel getting invited to dinner with these people you didn't know?
Yeah, but imagine that, right? Like,
Yeah.
there was like a once a week meeting where they had everyone go out to dinner, no matter who you
Wow.
were. Don't worry, you're covered, right? And you have
Yeah.
the opportunity to speak and you know communicate and you know interact with people from all different walks of life, right? And get a different perspective, right, of somebody else's recovery, and
Yeah.
maybe you know maybe make a new friend, maybe have a new sponsee or a new sponsor, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, you never know who you're sitting next to in a meeting, and
Very
and
very true.
and you know some of the best conversations I've ever had have started like at the coffee bar, like getting a cup of coffee or just even
Yeah.
saying hi. And you know, AA I notice is very it's very welcoming. Like the people I've never felt like not welcome in a meeting. And I've been to like a couple, like I think out of state. All I've been to is Georgia and North Carolina so far, and those meetings were actually really those were some good meetings, and they were very welcoming.
Yeah. And that's awesome, right? It's
Yeah,
like one of those things, like no matter where you go, it's nice to be able to feel like at home, right? Or feel like you're welcome no matter what. And that's a cool feeling, I think.
it is, and it's and I heard some things in meetings that I've never heard before, like just some sayings and it's like some of the lingo, and it's
Yeah.
cool. You carry that with you kind of everywhere. Like I'm carrying it with me. So one of them was big wheeling. This guy was saying that
Big win.
the big wheel in life wasn't for him, and I guess that's like the big the big extravagant life. Like it's just so
No, that's cool, man.
yeah. So
That's so cool.
I see you doing a lot of service too, like taking people. I've seen you take people back and forth from meetings and have been there. And what does that mean for you in your life?
Oh, wow. It's definitely rewarding for me, and it's definitely an honor to give back. I'm like for me, like service is a little difficult because I can't always make the commitment to like do the coffee bar or you know do the chair because I do travel a lot and I do travel unexpectedly. But the little things that I can do, like take somebody to a meeting, it's been very rewarding and it's an honor. You know, sometimes people don't have that ride or whatever like that, and it's when you see somebody asking to get a ride and you don't see anybody else reach out their hands, you know, I'll reach out my hand. I'm happy to take you to a meeting. If I'm going that way, you'll always have a ride, you know? And
Absolutely.
I've tried to keep that. And it's definitely a nice thing. And I try to help out with service in other ways, you know, try to be, you know, somewhat anonymous in certain things, you know, whether you're giving things here or there, you know, but we'll try to keep it anonymous.
Yeah.
But but you can't always, you know, there's a lot of different ways of service, right?
Yeah.
So obviously sharing and giving coffee is huge, right? You know what I miss and I don't see a lot at the Sterling Room or other rooms these days is like door greeters, right? I don't know if you remember back in the day, but like they used to like somebody was you stood in the door and you greeted every single person that walked in the door, you know? And
Yeah.
now I don't see that a lot in different meetings that I go to. You know, you don't see those door greeters anymore. People walk in and it would be good to see that for the newcomer to walk in the door and at least know like you know, like, hey, you know, welcome, you know, hi. The first person you meet, at least you know, there's somebody's greeting you to say, hi, my name is Noah. Welcome to the meeting, you know. And you know, I always say like when I see a newcomer or they come in, I always say, hey, welcome home. That's always like the one thing I always try to say to like the newcomer to like try to make them feel at home and try to offer that.
Yeah.
Um, but it's nice. It would be nice to see like the greeters again, little things like that. I just see a lot of changes in the rooms these days that are just not the same. that they used to be like in the olden days.
Yeah, yeah, it's yeah. I've been to a couple meetings where there's door greeters. There's one here I know that they have door greeters, and there's another one that I know of, and not I don't see that too much. There's one room over there, the 12-step house over in Fort Lauderdale. They have door greeters when you walk in.
Nice,
Yeah,
nice.
and that's kind of like the big meeting hub over there. And but those words, welcome home. Like I can never say this enough. Like those were the words that changed my life. Like I was like, I've never been told welcome home before and never
Okay.
felt a part of. And those words are huge. That handshake is huge.
100%. To
Yeah.
make you feel part of it. That when you have nobody left in your life to go to, and somebody opens up their hand and says, "Hey, buddy, welcome home." That's awesome. That's amazing. That definitely made me feel welcome as well, and gave me the opportunity to stay in the meeting and come back the next day.
Yeah, absolutely. So you sound like you're pretty grateful. And what are you grateful for at this point in your life?
At this point in my life, I'm grateful to be alive. To be honest, it's like
Yeah.
as simple as that sounds, right? Like
No, it's
like
yes.
it's a crazy world right now, and like just the simple thing of just being alive, and having choices, I think is just like amazing, right? Freedom and choice. It's huge that we have these days, and I have like on my computer, I have a gratitude list on my computer at work and at home. And like when life goes to shit and work goes to shit, that's the first thing I do is I open up that gratitude list, and you know what? Life isn't so bad, man. Like I was telling you earlier, Thursday night, I'm driving home,
Yeah.
and it was wet and rainy, and I hit a water puddle and I hydroplaned on 95 express lane. I did 360s, and by the grace of God, my car did the 360s, hit the express lane poles. I was
Really?
able to put the car in neutral, turn it back on, and start the car and keep going forward. And by the grace of God, I didn't hit anybody and I didn't get hurt. And
On
that's gratitude,
95.
man. On 95, man, going home Thursday night.
How
And how
lucky are
lucky
you?
is that?
How
How lucky am I? It's not
90
my time, Mark.
on 95 on those poles. Listen, those poles that are on that express lane, I have driven down 95. For one, I've seen people cut over those like it's nothing, but I saw one time, check this out now, a bumper laying on those, like it ripped somebody's bumper off and they obviously kept
Yeah,
going. Yeah, like
yeah.
how did
No, like
you came out of
it
that
was insane.
unscathed?
Unscathed. It was like slow motion doing the 360. I had a friend of mine, Gary, who was in the car, and I grabbed him by the leg and I said, "Gary, don't worry, it's going to be okay." And it was like all in slow motion, and I was calm. I don't know how. I was
Wow.
calm, and I let the car do the spin. I was able to finally get control of the wheel and not lose the control to flip anywhere or hit anything, and put it in neutral and then drive. And then whatever cars that were coming behind me must have seen it happening and slowed down. And I no, I didn't hit anybody. I didn't hit anybody. The only thing I hit was these little poles in the 95 express lane. They damaged my car. My car looks like it got beat by a baseball bat, but I don't have a scratch on me. My friend doesn't have a scratch on him, and we made it by the grace of God. So I'm pretty
Wow.
grateful to be alive today.
Yeah. That's yeah, especially on 95. Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Unscathed. Yeah. Is it odd or is it God? I think it's God.
I think it's definitely God. And it's definitely not my time to go.
It-
So there's something in this world that I need to accomplish still, and I'm grateful for that because I'm not ready to go. There's a lot more in this world I want to see. I've been blessed with a couple of grandchildren,
wow.
and
Your
I want to
grandfather.
watch them. Yeah, two times over. I have and that's miracle, right? That's a miracle that being sober is that those are the gifts of sobriety.
Wow.
That you
That's,
have a family
yeah. The
and
gifts
you
aren't
can
material in
enjoy them.
nature.
You can enjoy the family and be a part of their life. I wasn't there for a long time for my son. I was away from him for a while there while I was all in that active addiction and alcoholism. By the
Yeah.
grace of God, he didn't see me through all that stuff. And that's
Yeah.
that's one thing I'll definitely tell you as far as like an epiphany, like the grace of God and being gratitude is that I didn't see my son for a few years because of my active addiction. First, it was a year and a half of me going downhill and falling apart and destroying everything I ever had. And then it was a year and a half of recovery, getting back everything that I worked hard to lose. I was trying to get it back. And one of the processes was trying to get access to my son again. So being sober and doing the next right thing, I was able to get a job. I was able to hire a lawyer, and I was able to go through the steps in the process to see my son again.
Yeah.
And after seeing my son for the first time in years, the first day I saw my son, I had to see him with supervisor at Tajin. I saw him off site in a facility, like one of those little game places.
Hmm.
And my son, when I saw him for the first time, he says, "Daddy, I love you and I miss you, and I sleep with your picture underneath my pillow every night." And
Aw.
like if that's not like God working in your life, that to say like, wow, I didn't lose my son, I didn't lose that one thing that was my life, was
Yeah.
huge. And that, that's another thing that, keeps me sober, so to speak, besides me, but, you obviously want to keep, you have your kids and your family, that you want to stay sober for,
Yeah.
and be able to see them grow up and see them mature, and now that my son, he's 34 years old, he's got a son that's 5 years old, a grandson, and I can be a part of his life every single day, and I can be an active part of my grandson's life and be a grandpa, and kind of even make up for the times that I lost with him. I can make that up with my grandson. And it's
Yeah.
truly a blessing, man. Truly a blessing.
That is a blessing. And I never knew that you were a grandpa. Like the whole time I've known you, I've never known that you were a grandpa. So I guess you learned something new about the people you're in recovery with every day. And
That's it, man.
that's incredible. So before we go, the newcomer. Do you have anything that you'd like to say for the newcomer if a newcomer's listening to this?
Don't give up on yourself. Keep trying. Don't give up on the hope and the dream. As long as you do the next right thing, everything will fall into place. The most important thing, just don't drink.
Yes.
There's a million people in the way. There's phone calls to help stop you. There's meetings you can go to, but at the end of the day, it's you and God, and hopefully you find that connection with Him. But if you don't drink, everything's going to be okay.
That's
But if you drink, you lose everything.
that's beautiful. And that is so true. If you're new and you're listening to that, you can bank on that. Like that's so true. Noah, thank you so much for your time and for your service today and for doing this with me. And I'm grateful for our friendship and to get to know you more. And I'm sure I'll see you at a meeting soon.
No, absolutely. And thank you very much, Mark, for doing this. This is amazing. I really love your podcast. I enjoy listening to them. And it's definitely very helpful during the day. It's definitely refreshing to hear. Sometimes when you're driving and you have a monotonous day, and it's great to put on your podcast there and just listen to the stories. It definitely gives me hope and inspiration for myself.
Awesome.
So
Well,
thank you for that.
yeah, thank you for saying so. And all right, so check this out. Before we go, the recovery band, they're gonna play that one song they know, and they're gonna take us out. How's that sound?
That sounds awesome.
One song funk, kick it, boys. There you go, Noah. Yeah. Oh, and the studio audience. All right, Noah. Well, thank you so
Amazing.
much.
Thank you, Mark. Have a great one, buddy.
You too.
See
Goodbye,
you soon.
everyone, and be well. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.